A strange birth took place in a farmer's barn. It was a 1 in 10,000 event, and when the farmer saw what it was, he screamed. But more than that, it set a series of events in motion that changed everything about his life. Ethan jolted awake in the dead of night. The barn outside was alive with strange noises, an unsettling mix of whinnies and thuds. His pulse quickened as he threw on his coat and bolted outside. The cold night air stung his face, but he barely noticed. He reached the barn and pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, Emma, his prized mare, was in distress. She was sweating, and her eyes were wide with pain and fear. Ethan's gut twisted as he realized she was in labor. This wasn't supposed to happen for weeks. The noises, the timing, it was all wrong, and he hated that his favorite horse was going through such a scary ordeal with no professional by her side. Emma was a majestic mare with a glossy chestnut coat and a gentle spirit. Ethan had raised her from a foal. He'd nurtured her through every scrape and sickness. Now, standing beside her, he felt a mix of fear and helplessness. She was in pain, and he didn't know how to ease it. He grabbed his phone and dialed Dr. Nicola Jarvis, the local vet. "Stay calm, Ethan," she said. "I'm not in town, but I'll be there as soon as I can. It will probably take a day or two. In the meantime, keep her comfortable, talk to her, keep her calm. She knows what to do." Ethan put the phone down and turned back to Emma. "It's okay, girl," he whispered while stroking her neck. "You're going to be all right. Just breathe." Emma's breathing was more labored now. Ethan felt a surge of panic but pushed it down. He fetched clean towels and a bucket of warm water but didn't know what else to do. Emma's contractions grew more intense. He stayed by her side, wiped her sweat, and murmured words of encouragement. Just when he thought he couldn't bear it any longer, he saw the first signs of the foal. With a final powerful contraction, the foal emerged. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was a colt. It was wet and trembling, but very much alive. He quickly wrapped the foal in a towel and rubbed it vigorously to stimulate its breathing. The colt's chest rose and fell with a tiny, fragile rhythm. "Will," Ethan whispered. "Welcome to the world, little one. Your name is Will." His relief was short-lived. Emma was still restless. Then, to his utter shock, Ethan saw another pair of tiny hooves. He screamed loudly, unable to help himself. "No way, Emma, you're having twins." He had heard of twin foals before, but they were incredibly rare and often didn't survive. Panic clawed at him, but he focused on Emma. The second birth was as arduous as the first. After what felt like an eternity, the second foal slid into the world. Ethan's hands trembled as he wrapped the tiny creature in another towel. This one was a filly, smaller and more delicate than her brother. "Grace," he breathed, his voice choked with emotion. "Your name is Grace because you're a miracle." Twin foals are an extraordinary rarity in the world of horse breeding. The odds of both twins surviving are estimated to be 1 in 10,000. Most twin pregnancies in horses end in abortion or the death of one or both foals. It's a harsh reality of nature, where survival is often a matter of sheer luck and timing. Emma's successful delivery of Will and Grace was nothing short of a miracle.
Ethan knew the statistics all too well. Dr. Nicola Jarvis arrived a day later. She had a calm, reassuring presence that immediately put Ethan at ease.
She examined the twins thoroughly. "They're doing remarkably well," Nicola said. "They'll need round-the-clock care, especially in the first few weeks. Make sure they're nursing well and staying hydrated. Watch for any signs of weakness or illness. I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Ethan followed Nicola's instructions to the letter. He became a tireless guardian. He ensured that Emma had ample food and water to produce enough milk for the twins. He monitored their weight daily and noted every gain and loss with meticulous precision. He adjusted the barn's temperature to keep them warm and comfortable, aware that even a slight chill could be dangerous. As the weeks passed, the foals grew stronger. They were beating the odds, defying expectations, and proving that miracles could happen even on a small farm in California. Late one afternoon, Ethan noticed a figure approaching from a distance. It was a tall, thin man dressed in a long coat and hat. He was making his way down the dirt path toward the barn. Ethan's first instinct was to be cautious. Unexpected visitors were rare, and he couldn't afford any disruptions. As the man drew closer, Ethan stepped forward and blocked the entrance to the barn. He asked if he could help the stranger. The man removed his hat to reveal sharp features and piercing blue eyes. "I'm looking for Ethan," he said. "I have some information that might be of interest to you." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "You must understand, their birth is not just rare, it's extraordinary." Victor looked him straight in the eyes. "There are those who would go to great lengths to get their hands on such foals. People who see them as more than just animals, but as a key to unlocking something greater." Ethan's heart pounded. Victor hesitated, then continued. "There is a group of elite horse breeders. They're obsessed with improving bloodlines and achieving perfection in their racehorse stock. They've been searching for foals like yours for years. They believe twins possess a unique genetic trait that could revolutionize horse breeding." Ethan's mind raced. Victor sighed. "I was once part of that world. I know what they're capable of. I'm telling you this because you need to be prepared. They will come for your foals, and they won't take no for an answer." Ethan watched Victor walk away until he disappeared into the twilight. He felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. The peaceful life he had known was now overshadowed by uncertainty and potential danger. The days following Victor's visit were anything but ordinary. Ethan's once peaceful farm was now a place of unease and suspicion. It started with small things: tools going missing, strange noises in the middle of the night, and the feeling of being watched. Ethan couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. One morning, he found his toolbox empty. He distinctly remembered placing it on the workbench the night before. Puzzled, he searched the barn and the surrounding area but found nothing. His frustration grew when he noticed footprints in the mud near the barn, footprints that weren't his. Then there were the noises. At first, they were barely audible, soft whispers of sound that could easily be dismissed as the wind. But as days passed, the noises grew louder and more distinct. Thumps and rustling in the dark hours of the night kept Ethan on edge. He spent sleepless nights patrolling the barn, flashlight in hand, ready to confront whatever or whoever was causing the disturbances. One evening, while checking on the foals, he noticed something odd. Will was standing near the barn door, pawing at the ground. Ethan approached and saw a small, shiny object partially buried in the dirt. He picked it up. It was a tiny, high-tech listening device. His blood ran cold. The breeders, they were watching him, listening to him. His paranoia wasn't unfounded. This was real. Determined to protect his foals, Ethan took the device inside and smashed it with a hammer. He had to be more vigilant than ever. One night, he found the barn gate wide open, even though he was sure he had locked it. Another time, he discovered strange symbols carved into a tree near the pasture. Each incident heightened his anxiety and steeled his resolve. The breaking point came when he discovered a note pinned to the barn door. The message was simple yet chilling. "We're closer than you think." Ethan's hands trembled as he read it. The threat was real, and it was closing in. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He called Nicola and explained everything he had discovered. The vet was shocked, but agreed to help. With Nicola's help, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. They devised a plan to safeguard the foals and contacted the local authorities to report the intrusions and the strange happenings. Determined to uncover the truth, he began digging. It was a letter from Emma's previous owner, a renowned horse breeder named Charles Remington. The letter detailed her pedigree and mentioned a secret breeding program aimed at producing genetically superior horses. Ethan read with mounting horror as Remington described how the program had experimented with rare genetic markers, believing they held the key to producing the perfect racehorse. The letter ended with a cryptic warning. "If Emma ever gives birth to twins, Know that they are the culmination of everything we have worked for. The vet's eyes widened as she read. This explains a lot, she said. Ethan felt a mix of anger and fear. With Nicola's help, Ethan began fortifying the farm. They installed security cameras, reinforced the barn doors, and set up motion sensors around the property. They took turns keeping watch at night, ready to confront any intruders. They also contacted the authorities, hoping for additional protection. But as days turned into weeks, the tension mounted. Each night brought new sounds, new signs that they were being watched. Then, one fateful night, it happened. Ethan was on watch when he heard footsteps approaching the barn. His heart raced as he grabbed a flashlight and moved toward the sound. As he rounded the corner, he saw them, two shadowy figures creeping toward the barn. Without thinking, Ethan shouted, "Hey, get away from there." The figures froze, then bolted. Ethan gave chase, but they were fast, disappearing into the night. He returned to the barn, breathless and shaken. Nicola emerged, concern etched on her face. "What's going on?" she asked. "Intruders," Ethan panted. They were trying to get into the barn. They called the police, but the intruders were long gone by the time they arrived. Ethan felt a sense of frustration and helplessness. How could he protect his foals if he couldn't even catch the people trying to harm them? But then he remembered something. Victor's warning. He had said the breeders would go to great lengths to get their hands on the foals. If they were willing to trespass, what else would they do? He needed to be smarter, to think like they did. Ethan spent the next few days devising a plan. He reached out to contacts in the horse breeding community, hoping to find allies. He also contacted a lawyer to discuss legal options for protecting his animals. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The intruders' boldness was a sign that they were growing desperate. Finally, Ethan's efforts paid off. He received a call from an old friend, a retired horse trainer named Jack. Jack had connections in the racing world and knew about the secret breeding programs. He offered to help Ethan protect the foals. "They're valuable, Ethan," Jack said. "More valuable than you know, but they're also in danger. You need to get them out of there." Ethan was reluctant to leave his farm, but he knew Jack was right. The only way to protect Will and Grace was to move them to a safe location. With Nicola's help, he made arrangements to transport the foals to a secluded ranch owned by a trusted friend. The journey would be risky, but it was their best chance. The night of the move, Ethan felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. He led Emma, Will, and Grace into the trailer, making sure they were comfortable. As they pulled away from the farm, he couldn't help but look back, a sense of loss tugging at his heart. The farm had been his home, his sanctuary. Now it was a battleground. The journey was uneventful, and they arrived at the ranch without incident. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief as he unloaded the foals. The ranch was secluded and secure, far from the prying eyes of those who sought to harm them. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a sense of peace. But the peace was short-lived. A few days after their arrival, Jack received a call from a contact in the racing world. The breeders had learned of the foal's location and were planning to make a move. Ethan's heart sank. They had done everything right, but it still wasn't enough. Desperation and determination surged within him. He knew he couldn't keep running forever. He had to confront the threat head-on. With Jack's help, Ethan devised a plan. They would set a trap for the breeders, luring them to the ranch where they could be caught in the act. The night of the trap, Ethan's nerves were on edge. He and Jack hid in the shadows, waiting. The hours ticked by, and just when Ethan thought the breeders wouldn't come, he heard footsteps. The figures emerged from the darkness, moving toward the barn. Ethan signaled to Jack, and they sprang into action. They moved quickly, surrounding the intruders. The breeders, caught off guard, tried to flee, but Jack and Ethan were ready. With a shout, they tackled the intruders to the ground. The police arrived moments later, taking the breeders into custody. Ethan watched as they were led away, a mix of relief and exhaustion washing over him. The ordeal had taken its toll, the foals were safe, and the threat was finally over.